Salt haze bruised the broken skyline of Cascadia City. From Mayor Juniper Ross's office, perched on what used to be the 42nd floor of an insurance tower, the Pacific looked listless and gray, as if it mourned all the drowned boroughs lying beneath. Down there, amid the half-submerged husks of malls and stadiums, the city's geothermal siphon snaked to a volcanic canyon where superheated water steamed upward in steady pulses. Pulses that powered what remained of elevators, desalination pumps, and the flickering grid. But that morning, the pulses had stopped. Cascadia's LEDs were sputtering, and the masons reinforcing the seawall could not run their plascrete mixers. Everyone in the command room knew why. 3 hours earlier, a glyph had appeared on every municipal terminal. A stylized spiral, flanked by twin tails, the sigil of the vent wardens. It was followed by a single line. Negotiators, 12 hours. Dock 7. Mayor Ross had already dispatched a submersible, its polymer hull inked with white surrendered flag stripes. Inside sat Dr. Lucas Kwan, knees wedged between oxygen tanks as storms lashed the portholes. Lucas's breaths came sharp and uneven, each one fogging the visor of his immersion suit. Once he would have been exhilarated. In his 20s, he'd been part of the Abyssal Renaissance, the team that grafted nanofluid lungs onto volunteers and coaxed coral cartilage to bloom beneath human skin. Now, at 53, he felt equal parts responsible and estranged. The merfolk that Cascadia called monsters were, in an oblique way, his grandchildren. Approach vector 60 degrees, depth 100 meters, the pilot said, pushing them into slurry darkness. Silt avalanched across the searchlights. Then, like lanterns in fog, the geothermal vents appeared, holy pillars exhaling clouds of shimmering minerals. Shapes flickered around them. Torsos that tapered into muscular tails plated with iridescent alloy. Gills rimmed with microturbines. Eyes that glowed a deep, programmable sapphire. The vent wardens, cyborg mermaids. The tallest drifted forward. Her dreadlocked hair waved like dark kelp, and a polished obsidian visor covered half her face. Integrated into her ribs, Lucas recognized the capacitive coils that let her body sip energy straight from boiling brine. Speaker lines crackled. "Envoy designated Lucas Kwan," a synthesized voice said, melding water's burble with modulated contralto. "Disarm engines, flood cockpit, and open the lower hatch. You will not require surface air with the suit we provided." The pilot looked at Lucas, fear amplifying the white in his eyes. Lucas keyed the intercom. "Do it. They won't negotiate through glass." A hiss of valves. Frigid water flooded Lucas's legs, climbed past his sternum, then swirled around his mask. The pressure suit engaged, infusing oxygenated perfluorocarbon across his lungs. The cockpit hatch yawned, and Lucas drifted into open ocean. He felt weightless, but he also felt watched, not just by the half-dozen wardens surrounding him, but by the ocean itself, as though the sea were measuring if this land-born life deserved to be here. When his boots touched basalt, the tall mermaid extended a hand. Her fingertips were tipped with conductive gold leaf. Lucas placed his gloved palm against hers. "Nerissa," he said, "you remember me." The visor retracted, revealing a face once soft and human, but now sculpted by life at 200 meters. "Professor Kwan," she replied, voice unfiltered now, her words articulated by gill valves. "I remember the day you said we'd be ambassadors of two worlds." "Seems I was half right," Lucas answered. She gestured toward a natural amphitheater carved of vent rock, glowing faint blue from geothermal luminescence. Digital projectors in her forearms sprayed a translucent dome of air between them. Within its bubble, they could speak in normal vibrations. "Your city bleeds power," Nerissa said. "We disabled 3 vent extractors, left 1 operational at 10%. Cascadia's grid has 80 hours until collapse. We require a restructuring." Lucas swallowed. "The ransom?" he asked. "Name it." "Not ransom," she corrected. "Debt service. You owe the trench, and therefore us, for every degree of heat you skim. The Coastal Alliance promised rotation rights, habitat corridors, and access to surface pharmacies. Those commitments have evaporated, like any other shallow-water dreams." Lucas opened his satchel and withdrew a scroll screen. Cascadia's seal flickered across it. "Mayor Ross authorizes an increase of medicinal shipments by 50%, joint security patrols, and a seat for a warden observer in the city council chamber. Broadcast, obviously." Nerissa flicked her tail, circling Lucas with slow precision. "We don't require more painkillers, Lucas. We require sovereignty. That vent field is our mother hearth. We want a recognized treaty. Surface agencies must register us as an autonomous biome, and frankly, we expect tribute." "What kind?" "Energy credit staking, pegged to your kilowatt auctions. 10% of your future exports flows back to the trench as thermal share." Lucas frowned. "The city's coffers are bare. Last month, we rationed floodlights in the shelters. You still export drip-grown saffron to the interior states," Nerissa said. "You still light holograms on your soccer pitch. Do not pretend poverty while ignoring the scorched." A low rumble shook the water. A plume of soot burst from a neighboring vent. For a heartbeat, Lucas's old awe returned. There were planets whose cores had never pumped half so much raw fire. Earth, for all its ruin, still burned bright inside. Lucas raised both hands. "I'm not the mayor. I can carry proposals, but you know politics is like tectonics. Slow, grind heavy." Nerissa leaned in until the air between them tasted of char and salt. "Then your surface community will freeze in darkness." Behind her, 2 wardens angled their bodies, sending coded sonics that rippled the glassy black water. Lucas's earpiece translated. "Above, untrustworthy. Armaments noted in their harbor." Lucas stiffened. "Armaments?" Nerissa answered. "Sat feed shows Cascadia's militia repositioning depth charges around Dock 7. Does that sound like trust?" She paused, and something pained flicked across her features. "Lucas, we have 37 living merfolk in the canyon. That's all. Fertility is a dice roll. Replacement limbs we can regrow, but ovaries scar worse than chrome. We cannot fight a war and survive." Lucas's heart crumpled. "Come up with me," he said. "Speak to the mayor directly." "Not while depth charges ring your peers." Lucas considered arguing. Instead, he exhaled a stream of bubbles that rose like questions without punctuation. "Let me broker a ceasefire. Give me 12 hours. Keep the geothermal flow at 30% meanwhile. Cascadia's respirators need that buffer." Nerissa's eyes, half reflective, showed him a tiny, doubled version of himself. 9 hours. She flicked a fin, dissolving the conversation bubble. "If terms are unsatisfactory, we depower the final vent. After that, we will defend the canyon. You of all people know how effective our sonic rails are." Lucas did know. He had helped patent them. He nodded once, then kicked toward the submersible, his mind already spiraling with contingencies. Cascadia's command bunker smelled of wet stone and generator exhaust. Mayor Ross, lean and flinty, paced before a hollow map of the harbor. Every ship drifted in red overlay, every depth charge flag blinking crimson. "You promised them what?" she snapped when Lucas repeated Nerissa's demands. "Sovereignty? And 10% energy credits," he said. "We can't feed our wards. The floating slums are rioting. Pull the blasters off the docks, Juniper. The wardens read that as a preemptive strike. They cut our power. We're at siege footing. Lucas pinched the bridge of his nose. They are the power. He gestured at schematics, rotating on the hollow. Heat funnels dropping to the magma seam. We thought we could pipeline Hell's furnace and pay only for steel. Turns out the custodians want rent. It's not unreasonable. An elderly counselor coughed. And if we decline, then ventilation stops. In 80 hours, your NICU infants asphyxiate. Silence webbed the room. Finally, Ross ran a palm over the map, shrinking it. Suppose we accept partial terms, she said cautiously. Observer seat, medical shipments, but energy share limited to 3%. She eyed Lucas. Perhaps we accompany it with, say, a humanitarian technology transfer. Gene fix kits. Lucas shook his head. They've been robbed by surface fine print before. They need proof of earnestness. Ross folded her arms. Earnestness gets re-election points, but without electricity there are no elections. Cascadia cannot yield a tithe that jeopardizes our grid. Grid's worthless if geothermal turns off. You're asking me to subordinate human sovereignty to non-humans, Ross said. Lucas almost laughed. Sovereignty is already subordinate, to water, to plate tectonics. We've just been pretending otherwise. Ross's jaw clenched. Political philosophy aside, if we expose ourselves, the Interior Confederacy will leverage us. They already embargo shipping routes. Lucas stepped closer. Then we can show them the future. A surface abyssal alliance that unlocks extra capacity. The Wardens have designs for whirl body turbines, 5 times more efficient in vent currents. They propose to pilot. Ross's expression flickered. You kept that detail quiet. They keep many details quiet until trust is proven. Lucas softened his voice. Juniper, I know this feels like blackmail, but it's stewardship. They're offering to share the hearth if we stop treating them like trespassers. Give me the ceasefire order. Ross's gaze traveled past him to a cracked window, beyond which the ocean heaved. Finally, she said, Depth charges stay as deterrent, but they move to outer harbor. No warheads primed. Observer seat, conditional. Medicine shipments, approved. Energy tribute, 5%, but contingent on turbine pilot yields. 9 hours to ratify, or we withdraw everything and open hostilities. Lucas inhaled. It was politics, half measures, but maybe enough. I'll take it, he said. The second descent found the trench cloaked in eerie twilight. Sulfur filaments drifted like golden snow, and the vents hissed louder, as though aware of clocks ticking on distant shores. Lucas debarked alone again. This time Nerissa met him, accompanied by a juvenile merboy, who clutched a drone tablet, its screen dancing with fractal calculus. They have moved some depth charges, the merboy reported, through synth translation. Progress, Lucas murmured. Nerissa's gaze cut to him. Is tribute confirmed? 5%, he said, laying out a scroll screen with Ross's stamped signature and the turbine pilot offer. Nerissa read silently, then keyed quick glyphs on her forearm pad. A moment later, pale light blossomed behind distant rock, dormant vent pumps spinning up to 40%. Lucas smiled behind his visor. Consider that a handshake. But Nerissa's facial muscles remained tense. Observer seat is conditional? Just until the pilot proves stable. She released a bitter click. Surface politics. Proof begs presence. Presence begs politics. Politics begs proof. Lucas searched the gloom for metaphor. Circles are the only shape water knows. Poetry doesn't power incubators, Nerissa said. We'll accept pilot terms if we retain final sign-off on turbine placement. Agreed, Lucas replied. She extended her arm. Gripping her wrist, he felt her pulse thrumming, as if the vent's own heart had been implanted beneath her skin. Prepare your mare for signature ceremony at dawn. Tide level 0, she said. Lucas nodded and began swimming back toward his vessel, hope reigniting in his gut like reconnected current. Dawn never reached the trench, but at the surface, cold pearl light spread across Cascadia's flooded stadium, where a floating pontoon had been erected as an ad hoc diplomacy deck. The stadium jumbotrons were dark. Battery reserves had been unplugged to power the translation banks stationed at mid-depth. Suspended between pontoons, a braided fiber-optic cable displayed a count of the city's remaining megawatt hours, 47. Mayor Ross, wrapped in a climate seal cloak, waited beside Lucas as swells slapped the deck. The delegation comprised medtech quartermasters, a legal scribe, and 2 plainclothes Marines carrying taser harpoons for show. Lucas had argued against the last item, but politics again. At minus 15 minutes to the scheduled ceremony, sonar buoys pinged, multiple large forms rising. Merfolk broke the surface in concentric arcs. Their gill turbines vented mist. Alloy scales caught dawn rays, casting back motes of copper and violet. Nerissa surfaced last, bearing a pressure-sealed casket. She hoisted herself onto the deck using a grappling fin, water streaming from her cyberflesh onto the planks. Lucas stepped forward to bridge introductions. Madam Mayor, Nerissa, Senior Warden of the Ventura Field. Ross inclined her head. Cascadia welcomes you. Nerissa's eyes narrowed at the Marine's weapons. Your welcome seems barbed. Ross signaled. The Marines laid the harpoons on the deck and stepped back. In good faith, Ross said. Nerissa set the casket between them and unlocked it. Inside shimmered a thumb-sized crystal lattice, glowing faint chartreuse. The vent heart, Nerissa announced. A compressed data seed containing our turbine blueprint, genetic repair code, and allocation ledger. Symbol of covenant. If the treaty holds, the core stays lit. If your council reneges, the lattice auto-scrambles. 1 copy only. Ross's brows rose, despite her practiced composure. She reached for the treaty pad. The legal scribe extended stylus, hands trembling. Before signatures could be exchanged, a thunderclap roared from the harbor mouth. Waves reared. A shockwave tossed pontoon segments against each other. Lucas staggered, clutching railing. Spray burst upward as an orange fireball clawed the sky. Depth charges. Comms screamed, "Harbor Defense Battery reporting unauthorized detonation." On the pontoon, panic broke ranks. The 2 Marines snatched their harpoons, reflexes overriding orders. Nerissa's fin blades snapped open like butterfly knives. Other wardens encircled the deck. "False flag," Mayor Ross shouted to her earpiece. Static. Nerissa's gaze darkened. "We warned of betrayal." Lucas spun, seeing small drone boats darting from a distant barge, their bows bristling with grappler nets. He recognized militia colors, but not Cascadia's interior confederacy. "They're not ours!" Lucas yelled. "Confeds!" But suspicion had ignited. One warden launched a sonar burst that liquefied a drone boat's hull in a single resonance pulse. Another Marine fired a taser harpoon, missing by centimeters. "Stop!" Lucas roared, but the deck was chaos. Nerissa snatched the vent heart casket and dived, tail lashing. 2 Marines aimed to follow. Lucas blocked them, arms wide. "Stand down," Ross commanded, but the chain of panic was already forged. Another detonation boomed closer. Shrapnel showered the pontoon. A fragment sliced Lucas's arm. Blood mingled with seawater. Through the ringing in his ears, He heard Nerissa's voice amplified via his suitcom. "Lucas, witness the fidelity of your people." "No!" he pleaded aloud. "Don't cut the vents. This is an external incursion." Her reply was haunted. "The ocean does not parse your tribes." Underwater, cascades of vibration thrummed toward the canyon. Lucas knew what they were. Shut-down commands. The translation banks flickered. The megawatt counter on the cable dropped from 47 to 39 in a single gulp. Ross gripped Lucas's shoulders, her face ashen. "Get back down there," she said. Lucas looked at the exploding horizon, then at the horizon within Nerissa's retreating shape. Without answering, he hurled himself over the rail, diving into the cold. He descended through turbulence alive with clash. Confederacy hunter subs discharged miniature depth rockets. Leading wardens cracked them open with sonic pitchforks. Amid the strobing chaos, Lucas zeroed on Nerissa's heat signature, a corona of living bronze plummeting toward the vent field. He reached her as she keyed a terminal rooted in basalt. A third of the extractor stacks had already folded, laminating into rest position. Currents cooled by the second. "Nerissa!" he called over shared channel. She continued typing. He grabbed her wrist. She whirled, hissing, claws grazing his suit. "You facilitated treachery," she spat. Lucas let her anger flame, then said, "Look around. The Confeds attacked to sabotage this alliance. They want both of us ruined. They fear coastal independence." She hesitated. Far above, an intercepted rocket imploded, sending a dying shockwave that illuminated drifting filaments of wreckage. The violence felt endless. Lucas pressed. "Help me end it. Restart the vents at full. Push power to Cascadia and the entire coastal net. Show them you can give more than they can steal. Then we fight the Confeds together." "And when your mayor reneges tomorrow?" "Hold the vent heart as hostage," he answered, "but show mercy today." Nerissa's pupils contracted. Mercy is expensive. "So is extinction," Lucas said. "I spent my life splicing human and ocean. Don't sever it now." She looked down at her gauntlet. For a long, breathless minute, only the vents spoke, geysering thermal whispers. Then she swiped a command. Extractor stacks unfolded, turbine fins unfurling like petals. A resonant hum returned, cycling into crescendo. Up on the surface, Cascadia's grid monitors leaped from 39 to 120. Nerissa turned to her strike teams via acoustic nets. "Redirect aggression, non-lethal disablement only. Hunter subs are priority. Protect vents." Around them, wardens recalibrated pitch weapons to shield rather than spear. Sonic curtains blossomed, absorbing incoming rockets and rolling them harmlessly aside. Confed drones lost to navigation in jamming fields. Amid the new order, Lucas exhaled relief that tasted almost like joy. Hours later, the harbor lay quiet, littered with bobbing, disabled subs captured like intrusive beetles in webs of kelp cabling. Sunlight speared through broken clouds. The megawatt counter held at 142, better than it had in months. On the stadium pontoon, emergency medics bandaged wounds. Confederacy prisoners were corralled, glum and seasick. Nerissa reemerged, escorted by 2 wardens and a swirl of sea lions who seemed improbably to recognize victory. Mayor Ross limped toward her, a slung arm dangling. "You could have let us fail," Ross said. Nerissa touched the casket, still chained to her chest. "Perhaps I wished to test the diameter of your fear." Ross managed a brittle laugh. "And you fear extinction, but love your young Moor." Ross extended a shaky hand. Nerissa regarded it, then, slowly, took it. "Treaty," Ross said, and turned to the scribe. "Unconditional seat, 10% credit share." Her gaze moved to Lucas. "And joint defense pact, Effective immediately. The scribe's stylus trembled again, this time not from terror, but from awe. Nerissa produced the vent heart, now emitting not just chartreuse glow, but threads of amber, merging colors like two rivers mixing. She placed it on the treaty pad, and the crystal interfaced, recording biometric signatures in mutual light. Lucas watched, battered yet buoyant, feeling the future shift, tectonic, under their feet and fins alike. A gull screeched overhead, circling once before flying inland, bearing witness, perhaps, that the threshold between worlds had stretched rather than snapped. When their names had seared into the crystal ledger, Nerissa looked at Lucas. "Grandfather of monsters," she teased, voice soft. "Grandchild of miracles," he replied. And for the first time in many tides, the horizon felt less like a burial line and more like a seam, stitching sea to land with threads of fire and fragile trust.